RiskThinking is a company devoted to measuring the climate change financial risk that we face. So that is really what is the effect that climate will have, the financial effect on buildings, on countries, on provinces, states, businesses. And the big differentiator for us is really that we look at this problem from a complete what's called radical risk point of view. In other words, there's so much uncertainty in climate, so much uncertainty in the economics of climate, and so on, that it's impossible to use anything like forecasting to understand what will happen. So what we did, we built a database which covers the entire surface of the world. It covers 33 billion points down to 64 square meters. So in other words, I can tell you what the shed in your house is doing in 2050. It does that by looking at every single bit of data that you can get on climate change. There's a lot of open source data, and every single scientist's view of the future. And we develop a distribution of possible values for any risk factor in the future. Because climate change is one unique feature as opposed to financial risk. The risk will always depend on the location and the asset type. People don't have that kind of data. So we've developed that data which allows us to look at buildings across the world and understand the differences that climate might impose on them. So in every point on the Earth's surface today, we have all of history and all of the future to 2100 and all of the scientific opinion on the future, which we get by reading about 250,000 scientific papers every week, using machine learning, of course. So we understand the full uncertainty in the future as best as you can, from the best scientists, from the best data. So our output is really, here is a distribution of possible values that you might experience in Singapore. If you're worried about your building getting flooded, this is the sort of distribution that you might experience. Or if you're in New York and you were worried about flooding in Manhattan, it's the same thing. And with that, you can actually plan. You can understand how to mitigate risk. Which buildings should I retrofit? But what the challenge is still, which buildings do we retrofit first? And where do we get the most money for our retrofit? We don't have infinite cash to retrofit. And that's what we can solve now, in addition, So that's just, I think there's a lot to do with buildings because they are a very big part of our footprint. But today our biggest clients are Bank of New York Mellon, and they have 40% of all the world's custodial assets, of listed assets. What's amazing about that is because of the nature of the deal we have, a user of their platform can walk up to the platform, press a button, and say, show me what would happen to this portfolio over the next few years. This is the perfect solution for understanding what climate's going to do to you. And think of big banks that are running mortgage portfolios and are regulated in the investments by SEC. We're gluttonous for data. So what we have today in the database, amongst other things, is every section of every pipeline, every airport, every building in North America. We have every building in France, and we're slowly assembling that. And we have tons of things, every internet exchange and so on. So the day we get something like that, we can immediately put that in our database, and that immediately is aligned with all the other data. We have 100,000 data sets. It's about 5 petabytes of data. And immediately those buildings are aligned with all the data so that we can immediately say what the risk of those buildings will be.